All right, so we have, this is all going out to the board.
Yeah, through this the sends. So you do a send, not through the output fader.
And then we have these ghosts.
Yeah, so this is like the tom ghost of tom bus, and they're both grouped.
So how does that work now when you adjust the fader?
So in the DAW mode, or I'm sorry, in the active fader mode, they actually now are recognized as tom bus, tom
ghost.
Yeah, tom ghost. So when you're moving it, it will come in and move both the
left
inputs.
and the right.
Yeah, the left and the right. And then
Can you show the spill for the toms if we want to adjust the toms?
Yeah, so if in the toms you want to spill it, now down here, you can see that that's the spill. And then over here on the far left is actually what's being spilled. This is the main.
Ignore that one.
Yeah, you always ignore that one. But you can change it however you want to change it.
The two toms.
And then if you want to get out of spill, you just boom, and then everything comes back up. This board, right now, all the faders here are exactly in line with the faders in the DAW or in Luna.
So any automations we write in Luna carry over.
All the automations that you do for the fader in Luna actually is moving the analog faders on the 8424
in active fader mode.
And the only and the benefit of that is you send out Unity, so now that all your analog gear that you're putting together has the right signal strength coming in, and then you want to automate after that. After all the processing is done, then you do your automation. And that was one of the tricks or things that you have to really worry about when you're going with a DAW, and then you export the DAW processing, and then you try to process analog. But you're automating in the DAW before it gets into the analog. It will like ruin how the compressor works, how the compressor functions, and whatever else. So it's always important to come in Unity, so you actually have full control on the console before it goes back into print into Luna. So now the Luna can control my active faders on the 8424.
And the outputs are just main here, but they don't really mean much, right? Because
yeah, these are useless right now because we're sending them already out, and then they actually can go onto main. So if I was to go, just for all hypothetical purposes, if I go to EXT, which is coming, the signal from the main, I can still hear everything because it's still main.
Now it's coming out of Luna's main.
Yeah, it's coming out of Luna's main, not the console.
Board.
Yeah.
Right.
And then but in mix, the mix mode is coming from the sends. So you can actually kind of do them both if you wanted to, but the only purpose I did that with the mains is so that it's not sending a double signal into the console. And then after that's all said and done, then I'll print, like my stereo track or my stereo mix
off the board with all the automation,
right?
Being able to make analog adjustments, using all the editing features of Luna that you want, and using all the sub busing,
right?
Like the Neve summing or the API summing.
The other thing that I always like doing as well is, so like let's say I have 24 channels and I'm throwing it down with the buses, I'm basically subbing everything back down. I'll actually, before I'll do a stereo mix print, for the customer to review, but then I'll actually print all. So for right now we have 21 channels in this session. I'll actually print all 21 channels back in with all its automation, everything going back into separate tracks in the session, and then from there I export all those tracks and create a brand new session with all the outboard processing.
The stem session.
Yeah, the stem session where it's with all the processing. So if a client comes in and says, "Oh, if you could just make that tom crap, sound a little different, put a little bit more boxiness into the tom."
You can do that in the box.
Yeah, you do it all in the box. You don't have to touch the console again, because you've already done all your console processing. So that's kind of the scheme of things.
Sweet. And if they liked the mix, then you had all the analog summing from the Neve console.
Yeah, to the two stereo, like a stereo stem.
Or you run them out at the bottom. Now, one more thing that I think is really brilliant. So when we had like 7, 8, 9, 10, when you have them next to each other for those outputs, you can use the Cascade feature to assign all 3 of those mono channels at once.
Mm-hmm.
And not, feel like it's taken all day to send things out to the board. You only had to click on line 7, and as long as you had those selected, it did them all for you here from the side. And it cascaded them out, just as if you had a bunch of mics that you were trying to assign.
Yep.
So Luna is really making this analog marriage.
Oh, beautiful. It's beautiful.
And the Ghost workflow is
yeah, I mean, that was the thing that used to be, that was scratching my head. So I was like, well, how am I going to use active faders? Why I have stereo buses, I have mono buses or mono channels and whatever else. And, when you're in the analog realm, 2 analog, like left and right, is on 2 separate channels. It's not a stereo channel. It's 2 separate channels. So how are you able to automate and, like volume moves for left and right for a stereo bus? Where you have to have the ghost channel and group that ghost channel together, which Phil helped me, figure out, which is great. And that now I can do automation in the DAW with the analog faders. And, that's like a dream come true, really.
Well, it's easy because I've been using Luna since day one, and it's just seemed obvious to me. But what would be great is if, like, you could say this fader, like the way we have the 2 pan pots, if the MCU control for that fader could say, no, count it as 2 mono faders.
Right.
So on the board, you don't need to create that ghost. That would be like a feature request.
Yeah, and in fact, not only, maybe it might not even be a feature request for Luna because it's still coming out as stereo, so 5.6 or whatever. What could happen is there could be a feature on the 8424 that says, 5.6, you select and then you group on here, and then you'll be fine because the fader, if it just controls, it still would have to be. It'd have to be the same because it'd have to be in Luna.
I think it would have to be.
Yeah, because this will only see the 1 channel.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it would have to be in using the way it addresses the Mackie language for stereo channels. I'm not 100% sure, but we're used to just having the little, not the analog boards, So this is great to have this success report actually today. And so, hell yeah.
And it's not sinful to put an SSL on my Neve.
Yeah. So show me like you turn that on and you simply, what was it that you hit to get that to go right here, the 500.
Yeah, you do the 500.
And now that's cooking.
This is cooking, and then I can bring it up.
That's so much gain reduction, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I like gain reduction. I'm all about smashing.